Guys, today we're going to be going over how the Equilibrium dungeon works. Now, for those that are not familiar, this is the new dungeon that is launched alongside Renegades, which means it's very much Star Wars inspired. And let me just say, it's so Star Wars inspired, you literally fight an enemy who's dual wielding lightsabers. And hell, you literally face off against Palpatine in the final encounter.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
I really enjoyed how punchy this dungeon is. It's fast-paced, it's straight up aura farming at times, and I think it's going to be a dungeon many people will enjoy, whether you're playing with a team or as a solo. Now, in today's guide, we're going to be going over dungeon mechanics. We're also going to be going over how to do the post-dungeon quests, as this will allow you to focus for specific drops within the dungeon. We're also going to discuss feats, as yes, the feat system is also present here for Equilibrium. We're going to touch on the exotic catalyst for Heirloom, as Heirloom is the dungeon exotic, and yes, we've already done a review of it. We'll also touch on secret chests and collectible locations, and last but not least, we'll talk about how to acquire the Dark Saber, which is still eluding me, but yes, it also drops from this dungeon. Now, timestamps will be listed down below, guys, so without further ado, let's begin. Now, in order to launch this dungeon, you'll need to head to the Tharsis Outpost and speak to Honor, who will progress the way between quests and will task you with completing the dungeon. You can then launch the dungeon from the Lawless Frontier destination screen, and it'll be right there on the left side on the planet Venus. Now, when you load in, you'll be greeted with your first traversal section. Your objective is going to state that you need to clear the temple grounds, and this is essentially the first encounter area, and you can just follow our path to get there. Now, you're going to end up in this area here, and in the middle is this Imperium ship. But before you can even start this encounter, you need to clear out the entire area. Now, there's going to be behemoths, turrets, some adds around, and honestly, guys, I found one of the best loadouts for this is strongholds with the Praxic blade. Like, it helped so much when it came to defending myself and, of course, dealing with the behemoths. Now, once that is done, though, your objective will change, and it will say that you need to defeat the Barrent Imperium forces. Now, you can head over to the entrance to the temple, and there will be a rally flag for you to use, but to start the encounter, you want to head on over to the Imperium ship and then interact with it. Now, the main thing you're going to do in this encounter is you're going to need to get a buff called Shadow Novice. You're going to use that buff to break the immune shields of the shielded cabal called Nameless Apprentice. And then once that's done, a wave of behemoths will spawn in until ultimately you will have multiple boss behemoths that you'll need to kill. And once you've killed them all, the encounter is complete. So fairly simple here and extremely easy to do on normal difficulty, as there's no time constraints like there was in contests. Now, as for the order of operations for this encounter, each fire team member is going to split up and head on over to each of these satellite arrays that you see right here. There's going to be one near the temple entrance where we rallied, one on the left side of the arena, and then one on the right. Now, eventually, these shielded cabals will spawn in as you're killing adds, and they'll drop down via a drop pod. By the way, that's the most dangerous thing in this encounter, guys, are drop pods. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to lure him to the array. And the reason for that is that he's going to start his animation. That animation is a taken blast that will do damage to you, but it will also destroy this array. You're going to want to activate the array while he's doing that animation so that it exposes itself, and then that taken blast will destroy it. Now, let me just say, guys, you can activate the array multiple times, and yes, if the timing is off, you may have to get the Cabal enemy there to do that taken explosion multiple times. So just hit it again, make sure it's exposed when that taken explosion goes off. Now, in doing so, this will then disable that array, which causes the shielded doorways at each of these locations to then drop. And you'll probably notice in these areas, these 3 falcons at each of these locations. You're going to want to go over there and jump on the falcons and drive around inside of this loop and make sure you drive over these taken energy pools. They're very noticeable, guys. It almost looks like it's smoking, but essentially every time you drive over one of these, you'll see your buff meter called a Gathering Shadow. The goal of this area is to fill that bar up. Now, you also see a debuff under it called Creeping Shadows. Now, this will kill you. It essentially slowly darkens your screen screen and eventually will kill you if you don't pick up a buff. Because of this, guys, you really only want to send one person in there to collect the buffs. Because if you send two people in there and they're collecting the buffs, you could run into a situation where one person dips into those taken pulls and then the second person is not able to grab it, and therefore the creeping shadow debuff will kill them. Which is why the rest of the team just needs to stay outside, clear ads, and just wait until the teammate comes back out. Side note for the person inside, if you are in a situation where you cannot find another taken pull, you can always just exit the area and then head back in. This will prevent you from getting more stacks of creeping shadows and essentially refresh this again. Now inside of this loop area, there will be turrets, but again, you can shoot your falcon to deal with it. There's a behemoth, which you can just speed on by. For the most part, I ignored both of them, even on contest mode, and I was just fine. Your goal is to collect these buffs as quickly as you can. Now, once you've collected enough buffs, you'll notice on your screen, gathering shadow there will then convert to shadow novice. That indicates that you are now ready to go outside and then deal with those shielded cabals. Now, the person with this buff simply needs to just walk up to each of these immune shielded cabals and use their grenade ability. Now, this should automatically be on your screen, but if it isn't, you activate it just like your renegade abilities. For me, I hit Z, and what this results in is my grenade ability then swaps out for this shadow ability. Now, you can't just use this ability immediately on a shielded cabal, but instead you want to wait until they start to do that same taken blast animation from earlier, wait for that moment, and then stun them with your shadow ability, which will remove the shield. Now, upon doing so, you want to immediately kill this cabal, because after killing the shielded cabals, they will also drop a pool, and that pool, if you step into it, will buff and keep refreshing the buff that you currently have. That way you don't have to go back into the ring and keep collecting those taken pulls. So the goal here, guys, at this point is just roam around the map, break the shields of all the shielded cabal, and as this is happening, behemoths will spawn in and your teammates need to destroy the behemoths alongside all of the other ads. Again, I do want to mention that the most dangerous part of this entire encounter is the cabal drop pots. They will kill you very fast, and many times they drop exactly where you're sitting there trying to break the shield of one of these cabals. Now, if you're having a tough time with damage for the teammates that are killing the behemoths, you can always have them go use falcons. Yes, they themselves can go pick up the falcons and use that to deal with them, but I also just find that the Praxic blade is so good against behemoths. And for the person running around with the shadow buff breaking shields, strongholds is so good because you can essentially just sit there and block and use your grenade ability when that taken blast comes, with taking little to no damage. Now, upon clearing out all of the behemoths, that essentially finishes up the first encounter. Grab the loot from the chest, and then you want to make your way to the Imperium ship. Here you're going to interact with it, taking you to the next area. You'll have a little cutscene here, guys. Essentially, you'll be on the Imperium ship with the objective updating to search for Imperial intelligence. Now, from here, you can just follow our path to the first encounter. There will be enemies along this path, but you don't have to kill any of them if you don't want to. Now, guys, once you get to this location, here you can find your first secret collectible right here underneath the floor. From here, guys, just continue along our path. Now, at this location, you'll need to shoot these arc-powered cells in order to progress. And I want you to take a mental note of this because this is essentially the mechanic for this next encounter. Just look out for those arc cells and continue following our path. Now, after jumping across to here, this is actually going to be the location of our first secret chest, which will be up on the rafters above this machinery. Just come up to this area, guys. I know it might be a bit confusing. It's really easy to miss, but jump on up and there it will be. Now, after snagging that, you'll then want to backtrack a bit so that you can destroy more of the arc power cells to progress. Now, one thing to note when you get to this area is that we have some grates that we have to shoot through in order to destroy. But keep in mind, there are explosives behind these. So do not stand close to this when you shoot it, guys. It will literally kill you.
And then vent.
This one can kill you though. God damn it.
And then just continue following the path, bringing us to our second encounter. Now from here, guys, you're going to shoot this grate. You're going to drop down and you'll see a rally flag bringing us to our second encounter. Let me just say, guys, this boss right here, straight up R farming. Dude's just sitting back there chilling in the darkness. And then when you walk up, Now for this encounter, you're going to be using the same mechanics that you did in encounter 1. You'll have that new darkness grenade ability, except here you won't be using it on enemies, but instead on buttons, which requires the next tier of the buff called Shadow Apprentice. Now to start off, you'll be in this area and you can actually see the encounter boss down below, named Heirloom Triumphs Apprentice. Now if you turn around and look back at where you just dropped down from, there will be an arc power cell that you can shoot to then open the panel on the floor that you can drop through. Now once you drop down, the encounter itself will begin, and the boss can attack you in one of two ways, either a melee attack or that same taken blast attack from the first encounter. Let me just say, guys, it can be pretty deadly, so keep your distance when he's charging up. Now the goal right now is to essentially get through one of these doors. There are multiple doors that enemies are going to be coming through. Essentially just move through those doors so that you can make your way to the outer ring. Now on this outer ring, there will be 3 different rooms with ads all inside of them. The goal here is to kill Scion and Legionary lackeys, step into their pools so that you can get that shadow buff, and essentially just kill these enemies until you approach Shadow Apprentice. This is when the bar is full, with the buff lasting for 45 seconds. Now the goal here is essentially head to each one of these rooms, find the 3 taken looking buttons, launch that grenade ability at each one of them, and you can even see it physically change after doing your grenade ability. Keep in mind, you do want to hit these as close together as you can, because you need all 3 to be activated in a room in order for that room to be clear. And you can actually see this, guys, when you look at the 3 lights at the doorway. They'll be red when you come in, but the moment you start interacting with these buttons, they will turn green. And when you activate all 3, they will stay green. And you'll even see a text at the bottom that says emergency subsystems activate. And you want to do this for all 3 rooms. Now throughout this process, guys, in order to maintain that buff, you should definitely still kill those Scions and then step in those pools to refresh your buff. Now throughout this process, you may notice a debuff that will pop up on your screen that says Hero's Decree. This means that the boss is teleporting to you in the room that you're currently in and will be invisible. His melee attacks are really not something to be concerned about, but that taken blast attack does pretty hefty damage. So just be cautious of that. He can literally be invisible, pop up right next to you, and start blowing his load before you know it. Eventually though, you will see a text pop up on the bottom left hand of your screen that says Hero evades your sight. He'll then go invisible and teleport again. Now once all 3 rooms have been cleared and activated, and you have those emergency subsystems activated, you can now head back to the middle area through any of the doorways to start doing DPS. But in order to do that, you have to break the shield on Heirloom Triumphs Apprentice. You see, within the middle room where the boss stays, you want to look around for these pipes that are running along the upper part of the right and left sides of the walls. Within these pipes, you're going to see those same arc power cells, the same arc power cell that you shot multiple times before, but these you just want to shoot one at a time. Now when you do so, you'll notice that the panel there on the floor will open up. The goal here is to get the boss to fall into the pit, which will take a chunk of his shield down. Now you only want to do one side at a time, because if you open up both sides, you may run out of time for one of them, because the boss can be a bit finicky. Sometimes he jumps over the hole, sometimes he kind of like walks up to it and then just stops. Do keep in mind, guys, you have that taken blast ability and you can somewhat like use it, activate it, and push him into the hole as well. I actually found Glaive to be pretty good here, because you could sit there on one side and block, and then as he lunges forward, he'll just hit your Glaive shield and then fall down into the hole. Now after doing this on both sides, you'll notice that only 1/3 of his shield is left. Within this room, you'll notice that you have those same buttons that you activated your taking grenade ability on in those side rooms. And you'll also notice scions and other enemies that are spawning in. And yes, this can continue to refresh your buff, and you're going to want to hang on to it. Now, these buttons correlate with a generator in each of the corners. And the goal here is to hit the right set of buttons to turn on the generator so that these coils are arced and exposed. And so when the boss attacks and hits those coils, it will stun him. Now, for the left generator, you'll need to hit these 3 buttons. For the back left generator, it's these 3 buttons. And then finally, the back right generator, it'll be these 3 buttons to hit here. Keep in mind, guys, you need to have Shadow Apprentice buff to activate these. Now, if you have a tremendous amount of damage with your team, you really only need to activate one of these coils. You can literally see us doing DPS after the boss hits one of these coils. This is just one of them, and we shredded him down extremely fast. However, you can activate all of the coils in the room, and then as you're doing damage, you can literally lead him to each of these coils to continue the damage phase. This was essentially tack on another 10 seconds, which is really nice, and something that I think my solo players will probably take advantage of to extend that damage phase. Now, the last tip I'm going to mention, if you're sitting there trying to take off that shield before you begin damage, you can use the Shadow Novice buff as Hero is jumping up from the pit, which will deal additional damage to the shield. And you can do this again once your charge comes back, allowing you to actually fully break his shield when done correctly after 2 pit drops. Now, after you do enough damage to Hero, you'll then enter Final Stand, which is kind of hilarious. He literally breaks the back wall and he tries to run away. You'll follow him, you'll have to kill the turrets on the way to him. He'll also have some enemies that spawn in the back, and you'll have to do enough damage to take out that last bit of his health bar. Now, if for whatever reason you don't deal enough damage and his shield comes back, all you need to do is shoot this arc power cell on the bottom part of this column to open up a panel on the floor in the middle of the room, and then break his shield as you did during the normal damage phases. You can also use your taking grenade charge to deal even more damage to the shield, so you don't have to wait for the fuse to spawn back in. Upon killing Hero, though, that completes the second encounter, and you'll have a chest that spawns in with your loot. Now, once you've defeated the boss, we can now start moving to the final encounter. In order to do this, you're going to need to collect your buff again, which should be at the front of this little room. And then on the left and right hand side, there's going to be 2 more buttons that you can hit. And in the center of the room, there's going to be a switch that you can interact with, which will lower this door directly in front of you. Now, this is going to give you a great visual of the ship exiting hyperspace, and it brings you next to the ship that you're going to need to board. You're going to head on down to the left side to the edge of this platform, and you'll jump all the way down to the platforms below you, and then head all the way to the right, and on the wall, you'll see 2 switches you can interact with, which will open up this door. From here, just follow our path on the screen. Now, once you're in this room with the behemoth, just take it out along with the other enemies. Then if you go up to these computers in the center of this room, you can interact with them to activate the cranes. This will now allow these platforms to raise and lower, allowing you to jump across them. Now, there's actually a collectible in this room that you can grab. We'll show you the path to follow to get to that, and then the path to follow to continue on with the traversal section. And do keep in mind, you don't have to kill every enemy along the way unless you want to. Now, once you've reached this room, you'll see these 2 behemoths, and at the end of the room, you'll see a walker tank. You can kill these guys or literally skip right past them, but it's under the tank that you're gonna need to drop underneath, and you'll be in this room with multiple grates that you can shoot to go through. Now, one of these paths will lead you to the final collectible, and you can follow our path here to collect it. Now, once you picked up that collectible, you'll destroy this grate and just keep following our path on the screen. Now guys, when you've made it to this room, you'll notice this big gap in the center. I want you to hang left because there's actually a secret chest that's tucked around the corner behind this box here. Now after that, you'll notice that these Imperium Incendiaries will spawn in, and when you kill them, they'll drop that same shadow pool. Keep killing them until you get the Shadow Apprentice buff. After that, you're gonna jump up these platforms, and there's going to be a button all the way here at the top left that you're gonna wanna hit. And you'll notice when you look down the middle, there'll be a hatch that opens. That's the hatch you're gonna need to make it to, and then head up to the top. Now, there are pathways that you can take, guys. You can jump your way up there, each one of these platforms. If you got grapples, you can use grapples to get your way up there. Just make it to that platform, jump up through the pipe, and eventually you're gonna reach this room here with 2 Imperium Electi Praetorians, and you'll need to defeat them in order to proceed towards the final encounter. Do that, and now you'll find yourself at the very beginning of where the 3rd and final encounter begins. Here you can rally, and then you can approach the door, interact with it, which will then open it up. Ahead of you, you will see Dredge and Seer floating above, and as you approach, you will suddenly nuke the Cabal. Now keep in mind, guys, this can literally kill you, so don't be too close. Now there's quite a few different mechanics going on here, but again, very simple, and a lot of it builds on what you've done in the previous encounters. First things first, you want to start killing these incendiary lackeys. These are the guys with the explosives on their back. When you kill them, they will drop shadow pools for you to start gathering your buff. Now you want to get to at least Shadow Novice, because that will give us our Taking Grenade ability. And you're going to need that in order to destroy those immune shields on the Nameless Apprentices. Very similar to what you did in the first encounter. You see in this room, guys, these Nameless Apprentices will be spawning in, they will be shielded, and they will have the same attack patterns. They can either melee, or they can do that Taken Blast, which does a chunky amount of damage. The reason why you want to kill these guys is because every time you do, you've probably noticed those 5 balls behind the boss. Each time you kill one of those apprentices, the shield around one of those balls disappears, allowing you to damage it. And after you destroy all 5 balls is when you can actually begin doing damage. So kill 5 apprentices, destroy those 5 balls, make sure you're collecting the shadow buffs. Sounds pretty simple, right? It is, but there is one more mechanic. You probably notice a buff timer called Lure of the Dark. This will continue to count down, and this timer essentially shows you how much time you have until you're teleported into the Ascended Plane. And it starts with about 44 seconds. So you really don't have a lot that you can do in that first room. At best, you might get like 2 kills on the apprentices before you get taken to the Ascended Realm. Now, every time you do take out one of these taken orbs in that center of the room, you do extend the time. It tacks on an extra 10 seconds. However, what I did notice is that if you're around 4 to 5 seconds and you go to shoot one of those taken balls, many times it doesn't add on those 10 seconds. It's almost like it's activating the teleportation. So below a certain time, you're gonna get teleported no matter what. Now, let me just say, throughout this process, while you're in the regular world, the real world, not the Ascended Plane, the boss will attack one of you on the fire team. And essentially, it's the Storm Trance Super, aka Tickle Fingers. However, just like Tickle Fingers and Storm Dancer's Brace, it will get stronger over time. You need to prioritize those hands. Essentially, once you see those hands light up, you need to shoot them. If not, it will amp up and kill you. And yes, on contest, it literally killed me straight through my strongholds. It will even kill you through your super. Trooper. And pay attention to those hands because during damage phase, the boss here will start shocking you again, and you essentially need to shoot those hands to keep them from killing you, as it will still kill you in things like a Well of Radiance. Now back to the Lure of Dark timer. When it reaches 0, you'll be teleported to that Ascendant Plane. This is when the Lure of the Dark timer will then reset and again will count down. And at the end of this countdown, it will teleport you back to the boss room. Now, throughout the Ascendant Plane, there are going to be these 5 shadowy taken versions of the Dredgen Seer called Blistered Shadows. There will be 3 on the outer ring. There will be 1 directly in the middle on the same level as you when you teleport, and then 1 above. Now, you have 2 choices in the Ascendant Plane. You can either kill these Blistered Shadows, which removes a box on the Lure of Dark buff, or you can continue walking through these shadow pools, keep collecting the buff, until it maxes out at Shadow Master, and then go up to these enemies, interact with them to compel them, which will make them stop attacking you. And each time you do that, those boxes where the Lure of Dark buff is will then turn blue. Now you can do this for all 5 of these enemies. The other option is just to kill all of these shadows. And I would only really recommend killing all 5 if you know for certain you could do enough damage in order to essentially one-phase the boss. You'll notice on normal here, when I was doing my run with Lesson J, we killed all 5, which is very, very fast to do. We shoot all the taken balls on either side, and then we start damage phase and then completely cook the boss. However, you may have noticed that the Dredgen Seer's health bar has a white bar at the end, which is a threshold of damage you need to meet or else you will get punished. Not necessarily wiped, but the arena becomes deadly with tons of arc lightning. When you compel one of those blistering shadows, it's essentially going to give you safe DPS. And the goal is to do enough damage to get below that damage threshold. And you'll notice that the damage timer is denoted underneath your shadow buff where it says Seer's weakness. Once you reach that damage threshold though, if you still have time remaining, the timer will quickly jump down to just a few seconds before Dredgen Seer goes immune yet again. Yes, you will have to do another phase after this, but you won't have an eruption of arc energy damage upon completing DPS. Now, if you kill the Blistered Shadows, it's going to make damage more risky, as each enemy destroyed is going to increase the threshold on the Dredgen Seer's health bar. And if you kill all 5, you can actually make the threshold the size of the entire health bar, and the timer is only about 20 seconds to deal damage. Now, if you do not reach that threshold with either one of these options, those pillars around the arena will light up and essentially surround the area with arc lightning. Yes, you can go around and collect the shadow buff and find the buttons to turn them off. But let me just say, guys, it's annoying. And I would say for later on when you're doing feats, you want to avoid activating that arc as much as possible. Now, for the normal part of the dungeon, I would say, guys, just kill all of those shadows and just melt the boss. And there's a variety of good loadouts that will instantly shred this boss. I was rocking Yeet with Finality's Augur and a Mint and was absolutely shredding this boss. And if you got a full team on normal, you will cook this boss no problem. Honestly, it's one of the squishiest bosses in the game. Granted, when we start adding feats though, it will become more difficult and potentially on par with what we had to pull off during contests. I don't know, I'll have to run it back on the feat system. If that's the case, you may have to compel every single time. And when I start running feats, I'll let you guys know how that goes. If it's like contests, it will require a 3-phase. It will require 5 compels. But again, I don't know if it's going to be that tight. I'll be doing the feats this week to really narrow down on the difficulty. Now, once Dredgen Seer has been defeated, you then just go collect your loot from the chest, which if you're on contests, you were given the guaranteed exotic crossbow heirloom. However, if you're on normal, it's an RNG drop. You'll also get an item called Integrated Relic, and your quests will progress. Now, to continue this quest, you're going to want to load back into the dungeon and head towards the first encounter. You're going to wipe out the behemoths and the turrets right here at the beginning, and you want to head towards this temple. You'll go up the stairs, and you'll notice that the door ahead will now be opened, and there's a spot inside of the temple where you can place the first Integrated Relic. Once you place this relic, your quest will now update and ask you to find another artifact. It'll then ask you to clear the dungeon and then return and place the new relic. Now, for those of you who have done the post-dungeon quest for Sunder Doctrine, this is almost the same concept where you're going to need to do a puzzle and then clear the dungeon multiple times. But at least in this case, there's no time gating. One thing I do want to mention though with this one is that if you have a friend that has already completed the quest, you can run with them and you'll have all puzzles available to you and you can literally just wipe it all out in a single run. Scarrow mentioned this in his guide, which is actually pretty nice. Literally carry mechanic. This will allow you to complete the entire quest, do one final final dungeon run, and boom, you can put in all the relics. Now we're going to walk through each of these puzzles, guys, starting with the first one. You're going to want to clear the first encounter like normal, but instead of boarding the ship at the end, you want to head back into the temple and then head to the right and you'll see a taken orb. Here you're going to need the Praxic blade equipped, and I would say get very comfortable keeping this Praxic blade on because you're going to need it for all of these puzzles. Throw that Praxic blade at the orb to destroy it. A shadow pool will then spawn in on the ground and your whole team will need to step on it to then start the puzzle. A taken dome will now surround you, and you'll notice taken eyes around the area as well as a shielded captain. Now what you're going to want to do is destroy the eyes, and each time you destroy one of these eyes, it will add on 15 seconds to your timer where it says in shadow. The other thing that happens when you destroy an eye is that it drops a shadow pool that you can run under to get stacks of your shadow buff, and you'll want to do this until you get to Shadow Master. Now once you have Shadow Master, you're going to want to go up to the shielded captain, use your shadow ability to remove his shield, and then kill him. Now to exit the taken dome, you'll see another orb that you're going to have to hit with your Praxic blade. After that, guys, you can just jump on the falcons in front of you and ride these to the next area. You can also shoot some eyes to extend your timer further and get more stacks of your shadow buff. Now after you've reached this next area here, you're going to notice more eyes to shoot. You'll see more enemies and another shielded captain. Just repeat the steps to get your buff to Shadow Master, destroy a shield, and then kill the captain. You can then hit the taken orb to lower the barrier and then progress forward. Now in this final area, you just do the exact same thing. Deal with the enemies, destroy eyes for time, take out the shield and the captain. But this time though, there's going to be a button on the wall beside this blocked off red barrier, which is covered by a blight. You want to hit it with your Praxic blade and then use your shadow ability on it, which will lower the red barrier, allowing you to enter and collect the second artifact. After that, guys, if you don't have someone who's completed the quest and have all the puzzles unlocked, you're going to want to continue on and complete the dungeon, kill the final boss, and you'll get another integrated relic to drop. You'll then relaunch the dungeon, head back into the temple at the beginning, and then place the second relic, which will give you the offensive blade form mod for your Praxic blade. Now for the second puzzle. Guys, this one is located in the Traversal section on the way to the second encounter. As you make your way to the second encounter, you're going to find this taken blight right at the spot where you would normally shoot the 3 arc power cells, which lowers the platform behind you with the big jump you normally make, which I would recommend shooting these before you start the puzzle, as you'll need to jump across a gap during the puzzle. Now to get started again, you just want to hit the blight with your Praxic blade and then have all of your fireteam members stand in the shadow puddle on the ground and then head through the door right ahead. Now this is pretty much the exact same concept as before. You're going to have some enemies, you're going to have a shielded captain, and a bunch of eyes around this room. Go throughout this room, destroy the eyes to get your buffs, and add time. And I'm going to let some of this footage play out and show you all of the eye locations. Now, one new mechanic for this puzzle is this button you're going to want to interact with at the other side of this room. And in order to interact with that button, you're going to need at least Shadow Apprentice to activate. This will then open a door beside it, which you can enter to destroy the final eye. Now, once you have Shadow Master, you can remove the shield on the captain and then kill him. And once he's dead, you want to head back to the door you entered in originally and hit the taken blight with your Praxic blade. Now shoot the arc cells to lower the platform ahead of you if you haven't already, and jump across to the other side where there will be more taken waiting for you. Now, essentially, you want to do the same thing here. Look for blights as well as buttons to activate in order to get Shadow Master. We're going to let some of this footage continue playing out, guys, so that you can see all of these eye locations. Now, once this captain is dead here, you want to head to the right and you'll see a taken blight around this grate. Hit it with your Praxic blade, shoot the grate, and then head downwards. Be careful shooting these grates, guys. Make sure you have enough distance from them. Now we're going to need to buff up one more time, and again, we're gonna let this footage play out to show you all of the eye locations. Now, once the captain is dead, hit the blind with your Praxic blade, covering this button. Then hit it with your shadow ability, and this will end the puzzle and allow you to progress through this door here and collect the third artifact. After this, boys, you'll have to complete the dungeon once more. You'll get the integrated relic. You can then reload the dungeon, head to the temple, and place the third relic, which will give you the invigorating blade mod for your Praxic blade. Now to our third puzzle. Guys, you're going to want to progress into the dungeon towards the third encounter. This one is going to be in the room here, and you'll see the taken blind by the door to leave the room. Destroy it, and then have your fire team stand in the shadow pool. Taken eyes and ads will start to spawn in, and you're going to want to destroy them to get your buffs and add time. Now for this room, you aren't actually getting to Shadow Master to destroy the shields. Instead, you just want to use your ability on the captain and then boop them off the edge. After doing so, you can then hit the taken blind to open the door ahead, which will bring you to the big open room with the big gap in the middle. The same area where you normally have to climb up to that hatch that opens up to enter to the final encounter. Here though, you're going to want to start by doing the same thing. Boop the captain off the edge. Once you've done so, taken blights will spawn in the sky, and you just want to hit them with your Praxic blade, which will spawn platforms in the air. Now your goal is to essentially keep climbing up and destroying blights to spawn in more platforms. Now some of them will have eyes. You can destroy those to extend your timer and get your shadow buff back up. Now in this room, there's going to be 3 buttons you're going to need to activate with Shadow Apprentice, and this will open up the path ahead. We're going to let this footage play out some to show the locations of these 3 buttons that you need to hit. Now, once you've activated all 3, you're going to get an audio cue and the latch will open, which will allow you to progress forward in the direction you would normally go towards the final encounter. Now in this next room, you'll have more taken eyes to destroy, and you'll need to get the Shadow Master this time in order to destroy the shield on the captain. Once their shield is down, you want to kill the captain, hit the blind with your Praxic blade, and then use your ability to activate the button on the wall. You can then head through the door and collect the final artifact. Now once more, you want to complete the dungeon, get the final integrated relic, and then load back into the dungeon, head to the temple, and place the relic, which will give you the gyro core. Now after you place the final relic, you will have one more step, and that's to complete a secret boss fight against the Shade of Dredgen Seer. All you have to do, guys, is just walk up to this thing, interact it to activate, and this will spawn a Taken Blind to destroy with your Praxic blade. All fireteam members will then step onto the shadow pool, and you will be teleported to this boss arena. Now, this boss fight isn't overly difficult, but you do have a timer, and there's quite a bit of enemies here. The goal of this fight, though, is to kill Shadow Thrall to build up your buff, to eventually get to Shadow Master, which you're then going to use to go up to a Shade of Dredgen Seer to compel. Now, you're going to need to compel 3 times to lower her immune shield, which would then allow you to begin damage. At the same time, there's going to be some Taken Captains around the arena. You'll need Shadow Master to break their shields, and killing the captain would then reveal a Taken Blight at each of the corners of these rooms that you can destroy with your Praxic blade. This will then get rid of the Taken shield covering the corner, and you'll notice a Taken eye that you can hit to get your buff and add back time. However, do keep in mind, guys, this will take away your Shadow Master buff. You'll essentially have to re-earn it. So I actually found that killing enemies, getting to Shadow Master, breaking the shields of those captains, and then compelling, and then afterwards breaking those Taken Blights was the best thing to do. Now, something else that I noticed too is that killing enemies with anything other than your Praxic blade doesn't seem to contribute at all to getting the buff. Les was literally running around with Getaway Artist, and he was getting a bunch of kills, but it was not contributing at all to her buffs. Or if it was, it wasn't anything meaningful. It wasn't until I actually took off my artifact mod, my little swirly swords there, and we actually went and got kills with the Praxic blade directly that we were making meaningful progress toward that buff. Now, if you are having a situation where you're just running out of time, again, build up Shadow Master by killing enemies with a Praxic blade, get rid of 2 Taken Captains to then reveal the Blight in each of these corners, then run over there and compel the Seer, then destroy those Taken Blights, destroy the eyes behind the Blight, and then continue killing ads, building up the buff until you compel 2 more times. Then head to the very top after you knocked off the shield and do damage to the boss. Now, one thing to note is that before you do damage phase, if you save the eyes that are on each of these platforms, and if you want to clear out some ads, even after you drop the shield of the Seer, you can do so. You have a little bit of time here, guys. Destroy the eyes on your way up, kill some of the ads, you'll go immune again. But before you drop down, if you have Shadow Master, you can commend right then and there, knocking off a third of that shield on your way down, which saves you a lot of time. Now, you really don't have to go through that much stress if you commune on the way down. You have plenty of time there to compel 2 more times. Now, once the Shade of Seer has been killed, you'll then be teleported back to the temple. You'll be given 2 tier 5 drops along with the Energy Conduit Catalyst for Praxic blade. The next quest step will ask you to commune with the Praxic fire, which doing so, this will now allow you to attune to all of the weapons and armor for this dungeon, as well as the Heirloom Catalyst. And if you're just trying to go for the Catalyst, guys, attune to the Catalyst, and you can literally just go right there to the first encounter, knock it out, and the Heirloom Catalyst will drop right there at the first encounter. And after this, the only step that is left is to return to Tharsis, speak with Honor to finish the quest. You don't really get anything else for finishing, but this does complete the Triumph, which increases the initial chance for Heirloom to even drop. So this is definitely worth doing, guys. Now, for my folks trying to go for the Heirloom crossbow, let me just say, yes, you can just grind the dungeon over and over again and subject yourself to the RNG gods. However, doing the Triumphs can save you so much time. Look at all these Triumphs right here. Every single one of these increases your Heirloom drop chance. Some of these will require you to turn on feats, some even multiple feats, and then you have things like Me and My Shadow and To Walk Alone, which requires you to do the entire Equilibrium dungeon solo. And these contribute substantially to the drop chances of Heirloom, which is why this week, guys, we're going to be running solo runs of this dungeon, going over builds that do the best here, so be looking out for that. Now, in terms of earning tier 5s from this dungeon, this is unfortunately not the straightest path forward. Yes, you do get 2 guaranteed drops when completing the quest, but for the dungeon itself, you're supposed to be doing feats just like you did for Desert Perpetual. But this does seem to be a bit bugged, at least at the time of this recording. Scarab put out a tweet saying he believed it might be bugged and is behaving kind of similar to Desert Perpetual before it got its change to actually start giving out tier 5s. He shows an example of having 5 feats. This is supposed to give tier 5s part of the completion reward screen, but him and his team were just consistently getting tier 4s. I do want to mention though that it does seem to be RNG. You can still get a tier 5 even without feats. But yes, feats are supposed to increase the drop chances if not guarantee the drop chances of tier 5s. And I'm personally going to be running all the feats this week after we do our solo runs to narrow down on the best way to get those tier 5 drops. And let me just say, guys, these weapons are worth getting tier 5s for. Now, on the topic of the Black Saber Crystal, guys, for this, it is purely RNG. And it's my understanding that you have to complete the entire dungeon start to finish in order for this taken crystal to drop for you. Now, no lie, I'm kind of salty about this. I've already done the dungeon multiple times, no drops, but every single one of you have been sending me screenshots of you and your dark blade. So screw you guys. But that's it, guys. That is all we have for the dungeon so far. Let me know in the comments below if we missed anything. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.